Chama Yensuri. Rangi to be Chepa the Chin and Sun Yobali, Nipa, Nipa Karisna, to the Chepa Majipi, Suju Azetri. Then I Tani below Sama, I Tani, Ang, Tani, Samatri is one. The using Atan Tani to you, the Uji, Nazeti use on I Tani to yours one. You could die, you die near Rom. Gaja da Yomaro, it's not da Yoroa. Nga Yoroa, Miju, young Azesi, Rangi to be at Yomarumatum. I am a living at Yoro, Dada Nada Karu, Taji, Chaman, and Deungo, and then Chaman to go wrong. Listen. The using Natate, Tane to your race one. Lily Tatian race, so you can then add Nanjak Chama, Segi Angure, Lily Tatian Gris, Legion design the English at your attention, Guru. And soon but the nipple you teaching and that's but the is Tama by Lokang Shiba the Majiba to see the Chibal in this Joroa. They never do you teaching and the race to take Shiba Hawk. This is the temple hawk nature. Take it, Najan the Adeni, Najan his attack caressing. Chishi Terrason. Najan and Gaja, Gangazi, Gaza, Chishi is that Lucy is on Europe. That there is one somebody. Nibody and then Samari, so then had your race. Then they be Lord Samari. Nobody, your Maris, then they be Samada, Lucy Terrason. The Taw is there. Lord Sama. The in Naton, Tanya to your race. Nibadro, Lily Tatian, Rugeresa. Tasuba to the Chibat Chen, his Yorotaki, they never you teaching as that never you teaching as a terrier smata. Nazina Ningro, Angalia, Miji, Eugenie, I Eugenie and Samachago, Miji, Louis Chagoro. The teaching is on somebody, Nazena. Then Georgie, you teaching as a terrier, losing as a day. The Nabi usually been Gaja, and nobody has usually been Gaja. Gajain. Niji in hospital, Niji in hospital, Lazen Niji in Nazen Niji in hospital, Kasi Jason, Niji Jason Rani, Ne Suso, Navatabi, Ne Kala Saso, Na is in Nas de Chit. Madame Machin, Kasi, Ne Suso, Navatava, young, I Shabayin. Madame Machi, Casa Nataji, the Sipa Chin, Madame Machibachine. Nga Shabayin, they knew Pata and Nata, not Sibach and Nandrawing is handle. Nga dirty, Nan do Jawachibate, Nisha Toyos on la Chajiti between it at the race one. But anybody that's somebody Nazan is in Gaza, the music and Gadreti or Marisway. The Sanduala, Nga Shambatin, and Nga Shambate, Sisu Habatawate, Nga Shambayin, Nala Shambaris, Mata Maji believe. Not on the Simbachin in Andres, Matamaji looking at it in Andrea Yuari, Nandea Yuari, nature on the chips of Yodro. Lucky Jim was on the cook and his chamber. Name Duchess. The Duchess Jawachi, but the Mijan Toyos on the Jaji T between us, and Mijan Toyos on the Jaji T, but there is one. Mijan Toyos the Jaji T to Jogi. Mijan Tibetan is one. That Nibadmato. That Madame Majin at the Mato. That like it is Timber Hawk nearly Chago Samari. That Carson sense of Raji, but the Raji to one Deguro. Raji to one Degura, Digri. You come Maduba, Raja Maduba, Rangan Maduba, Lavis and Yomari, Mo Yomar, Yomaram. Since I'm watching Shiva and Raja, you Kata Shaka Rai Yomar Sinigoro, Rajiba, Dujiba, Omar Raja, take your header. You know, Mijan Toyos of the GT between years, or Mijan Toyos of the GT with there is more. Hedging I have to choose like I tell you will at this that I didn't hedging I tell you usually show that there is one step at you have. This are well. Well, Moon me. The family takes you.
So we have these three types of three ways in which the self is being grasped, erroneously grasped. So the first one, again, this is where you have entered into some process to understand the emptiness of the self. So you are looking for some flaws in the way that you have been doing this, and you're subjecting the conventional concept of the self to some process of examination and analysis. But still, the conventional self, the idea of the self, is arising. And why is that? It's because it is rooted in lifetimes of sort of becoming accustomed to that, practicing that, of thinking that the self truly exists. And so this illusion has to be undone through a very deliberate process over a period of time. Until that's done, it's still that self still arises as being something real or something true, just spontaneously, you could say, or instinctively, because you are so accustomed to thinking that it exists, and in the conventional reality of words and concepts, it is, of course, a very key object. So that's the first one. Now, if we look at the second, these the ordinary people who have never thought, never even thought of subjecting the self to analysis and examination to see whether it truly exists or not. They just assume it to exist. So with this type of people, when they speak of the self, or that they say, I did this, I did that, this is correct. It's said to be, this is a valid cognition, in the sense that all they're cognizing is the conventional self, that which is made simply of concepts and thoughts, with no substance behind those concepts and thoughts. Nevertheless, when they say, I did it, or I went there, or something like that, then they're referring correctly to that mere convention of a self that they have never even thought of examining. So then the third type is where the self is held to be truly existent, and the person is trying to find ways to support that philosophical assertion of the true existence of the self. Now, this, unlike the second one, this is a mistaken consciousness, because it is seeking to establish the validity of the self, that it truly exists. And so because of that, because the self does not truly exist, not established by the way of its own nature, then this is a futile attempt by these third type of people to establish it to be truly existent. And so they can be disabused of their error and mistake here through various arguments, through various sort of logical consequences that can be pointed out, because all they try and establish something to be true that is totally false, and there's a way to point out that it's just simply an error, whereas there's no way ever to prove that it's true, because of course it's not true. So now when we look at how this process of clinging to the self proceeds, we see that in the uncritical state, when the self is not being subjected to analysis and examination, then the mind is always satisfied with the simple convention, with that what's called the mere designation or the mere imputation of a self, based upon certain what's called bases of imputation, which would be one or another of the 5 skandhas. And again, the 5 skandhas are the 5 component elements of a person. That is their physical form, their feelings, their discriminative functions, their compositional factors, and their consciousness. So then here, when one is engaging in activities, whatever they be, talking, sitting, going, eating, whatever you're doing, then you sort of spontaneously or instinctively say, I am eating, I am reading. And you assume that there is a reference to that word I. In other words, I is just a word, but you're assuming that there's some thing there that corresponds to it that is real. So here, what we have to do is make a distinction, a very important distinction, and that is between this conventional self, which in fact does eat and sleep and get up and sit down, the conventional one, the mere convention. That's true. We do have a convention, which we call the self or the I, and it is that concept that we credit with our various actions and experiences. And then it arises, the feeling that that self actually exists arises spontaneously based upon our ancient pattern of believing it to be true. In other words, believing the simple convention to correspond with some actual reality. And so we're so used to that it just rises spontaneously. So what we have to distinguish between here is the way in which the self or the I seems to exist as a natural or true thing, and then between that and between the simple convention. In other words, the problem is that we are always confusing those two. We're confusing the simple convention of a self, which is true in the sense that we do have that convention, and it helps us to communicate and think about things and stuff like that. But we confuse that simple convention with an underlying reality. So then we have to examine both of those. We have to look at the convention to understand that it's simply a term and a concept. We have to look at the underlying reality to see that there exists no thing which is a truly existent self or a self established by its own nature. But we can only realize that through a sort of a fairly long, detailed process of examination and sort of critical examination and logic.
그 나도 시부는 그 말이지. 되면서 되게 그냥 첨부히 중요했어. 시부는 좀 저대는 시부는 좀 그래. 나 가진 해지세 나가 해야 돼. 여도 가진의 거 시부 중도 그 나타낸 조사기 때 시부 두고요 말이야. 나데. 다 가디운 것을 되면서 되게 그냥 첨부히 중가 가디운 것이나 되면서 되게 그냥 첨부히 중요했어. 솔레 또라 동도 가봉 양다 해도 쿠르사들 여러 내 중요했어. 시부는 것도 저 시부는 것도 좀 그래 손에. 그러니까 내가 매년 시기라라 그 갔다 보주니 철학 시기면 시구마 거스나 시구마 이런 데서 나오나 나 가까니 그만 거지만 그거 기분이 로서 두개 기분로서 그 나서 난 지금 사지 기분으로 이 되디 그래 기분이 아니 휴식 문으로 뭐야 되면서 되게 제 전부기 중에 있어 시본 것도 저 다시 본 것도 좀 드리고는 나가 사지 연구도 하세 진짜 그만 막고보다 시구마 거도 시구마리다 사지 강아 보주나 그걸 가르쳐서 선물 지나서 나세 주고 드리고는 나데 지 연구래서 나제 해지 나 사지 뭐다 나들이 있었다 미중 나데 이거 말이었으니 나한테 지금 아버지 먼저 지금 나한테 아버지 가자가 나스나 나스 지원에 나 아버지 뭐 맞았나 때 미봐 라지 미봐데 또 가버려래 그래서 그래서는 매직이 꼬마리 시꼬마도 쓰는 나 그렇게 날 가르려고서 쓴 지는 꼬마 꼬지 마주 봐라 희부지 내 되게 말아 이거라 나사 희부지도 나 때다 보지 내는 가자가 나 하지 미세 때리 있습니다 그때 손도 그래 니 맞은 해지들 말이 줘라 저도 뭐하지 니고 사실도 요청 제다 마티비 니고서 거의 하실라 시부 미히사 제다 마티노 거의 하실 시부 그 말이지 되면서 드르게 전 전부히 좀 요라동하다 매라동이 드르게 전부히 좀 있어 시부 것도 저 시부 것도 좀 그랬었지 빼나 매진 바시게라라 코카타부 주니 고마주니 쇼코마레스나 나라 남이야 나기 데타부 제주 하시다 잡고 나한테 나네 미티스비 나중고도 어디 나한테 들으시다 미지가 더 나데 미지미 나한테 들으시다 나니 좀 일단 여러 한가히 야나부 사고 당한디만 숨사지 나중고도 이거래 가자 더 나가서 되는 그러면 녀도 뭐 두고 말했어 세 여러 내 집안이다 야를 살아서 야 당한디만 숨사 나 들고는 나 잡아온 거를 나도 가자 나세 나세 들지 쓰기서 되지 말지야 지는 그 메스 까부가 좀 메토부 진실 치고 말인데 그러면 그건 갈로 내가 나부 히고서 안내 테마서 나사지 온거로 니콜랑 뭐 주지 나도 나들 가자 나가 나들이 돼 이거 말대로 안 해도 이거 말이 쓰거다 니시 되면서 니 전부 희중이 세시부 뭐도 저대 빼나 매년 바시라나 그 갔다 보 주바나 나라 남이 남게다고 제중 합이 희나 잡고 나한테 안내 미티스니 정부로 안내 되게 문제 해서 어디 또 나들이 해서 말이야 나리 아버지 응세는 나한테 배가 하고 있어래. 대박 지주셔 주고. 니사래봐.
Okay, so now in analyzing, carefully examining this grasping to a self, we see that the self, I, is something that continues in our mind, that is in our mental continuum at all times. It's always there. Whatever we do, it's there. The sense of I am doing this, I'm going this place, I'm feeling this, I'm thinking that. There's always this sense of I, and that's why it is so hard to uproot, because it has been with us from pretty much what's called beginningless time, in innumerable lives and so forth. It's with us even when we're asleep, when we're dreaming. When we're dreaming, there's always that sense of self there. However, it doesn't appear, the I does, or the self doesn't appear clearly to us with any definitive characteristics a lot of the time. It's just something that's sort of assumed. And that's why we call it a sort of an instinctive or a spontaneous grasping to the self. Like, for example, when you are completely immersed in some activity, like some intellectual activity or some artistic activity or cooking food or something that really demands your concentration and you're totally immersed in it, then you're not really thinking about the self, and the self even seems to recede into the background so much you hardly notice it. So then you look at other situations where the self really manifests, or that is to say, the clinging to the self really manifests very powerfully. And these are in situations where you are getting very emotional about something, whether it be a happy or a sad sort of thing, a good or a bad thing. You're getting very emotional. So the examples of this, if you are being praised very much, and it makes you really feel the self, think about the self. And maybe even more than that, if you're being criticized, then you feel that self arise almost as it's a palpable thing. It's almost like you can touch it. It's so strong, especially like if you're being accused of something you didn't do. Someone comes and says, you stole my such and such, and you know you didn't do it, and that false accusation just really makes that sense of self arise so clearly. Again, you can almost see it or touch it. The self, I didn't do it. I'm not guilty of that. And then you get completely upset, angry, and then that just sort of reinforces the sense of the self as being a true thing. So the I, the self, becomes very, very vivid, and it becomes the most important thing. It becomes the center of everything at that point, when you're defending yourself or something like that out of from a false accusation and so forth. So this is because that self is very deeply implanted through this becoming accustomed to it day and night, lifetime after lifetime. You think it really exists. And so based on that, then you feel you got to defend it when you're being falsely accused. And so it becomes very powerful at that point. Then other times, again, you nothing special is going on, and you get involved in some interesting activity, and you forget yourself, and that it just you have no sense of clinging or worrying about the self at those times. So, although it comes and goes, then it never arises in such a way that its distinctive characteristics become manifest. Now, if it truly existed, it would have distinctive characteristics. It would have something there that could be analyzed, that could be isolated and seen to exist in its own right. But that never happens. It's just this conventional, customary, sort of instinctive sense of self that arises more strongly or less strongly according to the varying circumstances. Yes, sir.
Tanga Shashi Tagaris. Tata Gajita Diduki Kaya Rola Tambis. And long Joshi, Nazen has shooting Jedu. Nazen has shooting Jedu. These hunt the Queen Hospital Tag, these hunt the Queen Hospital Tag, Nazen has Luchimbu Chuchu, Gajita Duki Channel 10. Long Joshi, Nazen has shooting the Chichuna. These hunt the Queen Hospital Tag, these hunt Hospital Tagging in an ad carried the Congress. Then a penasam. Lanta mini Hishi Don, many Hishi don't music to on Nica Tan Tabarism. Many long Hishi Don, music long time, music children came done draw no reason. That's Jigrism. Then a penna. Lantos, many Shinin draw nas, music, Rotansa. Lanica Tanis and Roata. Louis, Jeans are looking, Lo Morgue, Hitching Nini. Lo Hitching Woon and Gajan Hall at Chatu. Gajan Hall at Chatu, the Kalchi Tagorism. Lo Chagi Tamushikin, Hitching Hosulatum. Lo Chagi Tamushikin, Don Hitching Hosukan Tagoris, the Tagorism. Hosul Tabulo, Fuchina, Zetajenga, Nasashini, Joba and Roa, our time Mugan Debal Judge. Hitching Woonini, Gajan Hall at Chatu. Lo Chagi Tamushikin, Hitching Hosula Tagorism, not Tibet Judge.
All right. Okay, now we look at the way in which you can subject the self to examination and critical analysis. You have to do it very carefully because the sense that I am meditating on the nature of the self, or I am subjecting the self to critical analysis, that I, who is doing the examination and the criticism, then remains unexamined. So it's like you're examining something else, but you're still feeling very strongly that that customary or instinctive self. So you have to do it carefully. The example here is given of traveling somewhere along a road with a companion, like walking down a long road, and you have a companion there, but you're always aware that they are there, but most of your focus, your mental energy is going to walking along the road. It might be rocky or on the edge of a precipice or something. So you're concerned with the mechanics of walking on the road without falling into a pothole or whatever. And you never stop being aware that the person is there, but you sort of receded, and it's not your main focus. So this example is used here to say that when you are subjecting the self to analysis, you have to do it like that is some companion on the road, that you are looking at the way in which it arises. You're looking at the way in which that sense of self is there and what its nature is, but you are not getting involved with it from the point of clinging to the self. So this is why this is one of the reasons why it's tricky, because this the sense of self appears to us always as being more than simply a concept or an idea. It appears to be something which is truly established by way of its own nature. In other words, something that independently exists. And that is the sense of it being a truly existing thing. So if you're going to look at it and find that it has no such true existence, that it's merely a thought or a concept, then you have to do so without allowing that spontaneous self to arise in the process of the emphasis. So you can see it's a bit tricky, because what you don't want is to have that sense of sort of pride that says, oh, I have understood the true nature of the self. I see that, whereas which is still self-clinging. It's not really focusing on the other, on that concept of self, on that clinging to self. It's still completely enthralled with the idea that the self truly exists. Only now what the self is doing is analyzing the concept of self. Very tricky.
Awesome. And this Lui Chichi Tamachi in Hitchin Hospital Tag Sundua. That hospital below. Nazin Hitching Nan Hospital below the Lu Shuchina. There's nothing I seen a Tumba draw on the child racing. Yan the time Messiah Chagri is money. Tokibu Tabanese, Tokibu Tagris, Nazin Hitching Alkala Hangutan, Tokibu Tagrimato, like he was also Taranea, into Grace. And young Messiah Child Grace, called Tokibu Gitana. The Tagris one. Hospital Lu Shuchina, the Tajing Ashini, Tumba, Messiah Jis, Tokibu Tabanese, Tokibu Tabanese, Nation Grace one. Nazin Hitching, Nazin to the Takan de Ludia. He was on the Tokibu Tagrimato, he was already Tana into Grace, Nila Grace one. Messiah G, Tokibu Tabanese, Tokibu Tabanese reason. These say Nazin Hitching Nacheta and Hagadu some. Nazin Hitching Nacheta, Hagadu Tibana. Nazin Hitching Nakada, Hagadu Tibana, Nigitawudi, Santongudi, Kore Ligit in the Yobandaba, Koi, so Ligit in the Yobandaba, Nade. Kore Saint in the Yobatabo, so charging Hosu Grayson. The town would do Nate, Kore so Ligit in the Yobandaba, Kore Saint the Yobandaba, Chang Grayson. Kore Saint in the Yobatabo, so Chasu Hasu, Hasu Grayson. Then Nazin Hejila, Nai Naba Chasi, Nada Mela, Zukangal, Nazin Hejil, Nai Naba Chasi, Nabatava the Maris, Yabuchadio Marison. And Nabatava the Kanadi Gurisna, Dai Lucenton, Tashi, Kanza Machi, Supa, Wameo, Hitini, Nazini Hitava, or Tabaji Joshua. Yobatawa so Hasu Uyasa. Then Nazin Hejil, Nai Naba Chasi, Nada Mela, step at Joshua. That I do not day. Look, I will say it.
Okay. Okay, so when you are engaging in this analytical, critical examination of exactly how this self arises, how it appears to your mind, and why you are chronically or always clinging to it. When you go into this analytical process, you can see how the I, self, is arising in different ways, appearing in different ways to your mind. You see sometimes it arises in conjunction with your perception of your own body. And at that point, the self is just something associated with the body. Sometimes it's associated instead with the mind and consciousness. Sometimes it's more closely associated with the feelings, or what's called the discriminative functions. That is the way in which you identify things, discriminate between one thing and another, and identify the one thing as opposed to the other thing. And sometimes it's what's called compositional factors, which is this whole mass of different things which are identified as a self, but which in fact are just part of the process of interdependence of all the things with which you are involved at the present time and in the past. And so the self, this instinctive or spontaneously arising concept of the self arises typically in conjunction with the perception of one of these other aspects of the 5 skandhas, the 5 elements that compose a person. And so the instinctive or this spontaneously arising idea of the self then just merges with the perception of one or another of these constituent elements or these aggregates. And it is assumed to exist because, of course, the 5 aggregates can be seen to exist. They are what's called dependent phenomena. They rise as in conjunction with their causes and the conditions which form them in one way or another. So the self is just sort of imprinted or is assumed to exist along with those things. However, the self appears to the mind as being something more than just these 5 aggregates, that it's something else, that it exists independently of them at the same time that it is associated with them. So it has this sort of life of its own in our imagination, and it exists in its own right by way of its own nature or its own characteristics. So that is what we are looking at. And that is this object of refutation. That's something we have to clear away. But how do we refute it? How do we get rid of it? Actually, getting rid of it is said here to be very easy. It sort of melts away or sort of disappears once you're able to identify it. So that's why this process of analysis and critical examination is so important. You have to see, you have to identify that self exists apart from these bases of imputation, the skandhas and so forth. And that is this false sense of self, which is the sense of something truly materially existing apart from bases of imputation.
Tande parula kamajanga ni joroloji. Kamajanga.
Okay, we are 15-minute break here.
Thank you.
Tabu ndikido.
Oh, there you go.
Ta anan desin sare. Daji lisin ta tashi kanza machi. Suba pogame wa shigitini nga lingya hi. Midi pa taba ta manye pa. Kanagi ngini. Tutu tuba ha hila. Lanchi shanna ten gaja hasu chumi de resa. Gaja hasu chumi de ran lesun. Den ngese nang goba lihawo sa te ngese gina ne da goba lihawo resun ade. Yuse di china nende chai nende shentu chai sa tabu res. Gahi chochi gahi chochi chungla suba gwa yesa gahi chochi Tsongkhapa Churchill, the Churchill of Zero, that is easily. Near the Tai, Gashi Chochun, Chochun La Soba, Gua Yesa. Dingunze, Majiba, Todd Chalas, Dingunze, Majibana, Todd Chagrism. Dingunze, Majibana, Todd Chalas. Munze Jibana, listen to be to eat the David Mehevi. Munze Jigina, little sense of it, the easy digger could not joke my one. But now, Yasa Chenmo Shiki. Get the no way, Maro. As a Chembushi can't read, say, I'm home happy, Tabajana. Nai Lu Hoa Sabata, Saint Juan Haba Mesa. The same me so Shundibata, Mother Chundibatawi, in the Yadun Huji, Nan Ninga he Shasuma Tesa. Not the Reswata. This is Tata would you be set, you don't send a taxi musician. The need to be to the Patabatami with Tassi Lingi, Tassi Sola, Duate. Meeting Nandriba. Ah, to listen. Dagi listen to it, Terone, didn't know so. Ah, nothing is in Nana Basharina, Miss Ari. Dagi listen to Tashi Kazamashi, so promised in there. Corey said in the Yobata was so chassis, has all last thing, and then Hizil and I in Nabashazi, Madame Mestro, the Bajuro, take the Nero. Then Dagi listen to Toy Consa, listen to Toy Ashikonza Machi, Soba Pamela Shigitini, Naling Hishi, Midi Patabatam have a Krangini, Sutu Tuba, Hoa she launches Shana, the Gaja Hansi, Chum Gajan has to Shumi the reason. Gaja dog has to Chumi, but I'm going to the insulin. Yebim. Then Nissan Gobal Howard, Tessin, don't go Gobal Howard is one. You say this near the train Gashi, Tay sent the Tabore, he churches the Churchula Soba Goy, Pagajo, the Churchill Gaba, Churchill Gaba, those chigarism. Then Yunze Majiba thought the Chawa Lassa. Majiba thought the Chawa, not the Chawa. Nunze Jiban thought the Charging and Nunjiban, listen to be to eat in Dibim heavy. Listen to by the Koiji did the Kunheka Maris one, the bad usual. Decided well. Also.
Okay. So, when we are doing this, this critical analysis of the self, and remembering that this object of refutation, the truly existing self, is something that doesn't exist whatsoever, but yet we're seeking for it. And that's why it said, once you identify the this truly existent self, what you're doing is you're realizing it doesn't exist, it never has. But in the process, you are always thinking, I must analyze my 5 skandhas to see where this truly existent self is.
Robert, are you there? Did we lose you?
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yes, now we can hear you.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, we just missed a couple seconds.
You melted away.
You said, yes, yet we think I must find it. And that's when, after that, there was a brief moment.
Something about hidden,
Yes.
being hidden or something. Yeah.
Good, thank you. So we think I must find this truly existent self among the bases of imputation into doing this meditation and this analysis. But really, there's no truly existent self there, but it's actually the thought that I must find it. It's that I that must find it that is the object of refutation. So it gets tricky. And so it becomes very subtle, and sometimes you're taking the analysis too far. Other times you're not taking it far enough. But what you have to do is find this object of refutation. When you try to identify it, it seems to stay hidden among these aggregates, the body and the mind and so forth. So you can't find it. You look everywhere, you can't find it. And it's as if you think, well, it's in there somewhere. I'm going to find it. But it's that I who's going to find it that you have to find. So the examples are given here, like of what happens when you're on your way to visit a neighbor or something, and you live in Tibet, and that means going on a very narrow mountain path with the precipice falling hundreds of feet right next to you, and you're just making sure that you take every step carefully so as not to fall down the precipice. And so as you're doing that, you have this palpable fear that you're thinking, oh, I could fall any moment, one false step, and I'm going to fall and be dashed to pieces at the bottom of the abyss there. And so you're thinking, oh, I could fall. I have to be careful. And you're afraid that I will fall. I will go over the cliff. You're not thinking my body will fall. You're not thinking my mind will fall or my feelings will fall or something like that. It's just this very strong sense that I will fall. So it's that I that's going to fall, or that you're afraid of falling. That is the object of refutation. Because these other parts are inseparable, our body, our mind, our feelings, all of these bases of imputation. So long as we're embodied in this body, from birth until death, we have this body that comes complete with a mind and with feelings and discriminative functions and compositional factors, and they're all mixed together. It said it's like pouring milk into water. They get all mixed together. You can't separate them out at that point. So likewise, the body and mind, all the aggregates together, and then it's on top of that that you're imposing this idea of a self. Then you have many other examples of this. If the text gives the example of riding on a horse. You're galloping along on the horse, and you think of I'm riding a horse. So at that point, horse is the imputation. In other words, horse is a concept. You're riding on the body of the horse, and the horse is the concept that is imputed based upon all of the aggregates that make up that horse. And so it's sort of a term which covers all of the aspects of that horse, the horse's body, mind, feelings, and so forth. But we just think horse. Another example is given of the three great monasteries in Lhasa, Drepung, Ganden, and Sera. So it's, of course, the text is given to monks from those three great monasteries when this was taught. So it's an easy example for them to think about. And so he says, okay, you look at Drepung, for instance. what is Drepung? Oh, there's no Drepung there. There's a bunch of buildings and roads and lanes between them. There's a whole bunch of temples there with all sorts of accoutrements and gilded features and this and that. There's a lot of monks, teachers and disciples going here and there and engaging in their specific activities. So there's all of these different bases of the imputation of the term Drepung. But if you look for Drepung itself, you're not going to find it. All you'll find is the walls and the floors and the ceilings and the monks and things like that. And so the idea of Drepung, the concept of Drepung, is something that's superimposed over all those bases of imputation. And when you think of it, it's like this is something that is added through our conceptual process. There's no Drepung there. There's no horse that you're riding. There's just the different component parts or elements that make up the horse. And likewise, when you are examining the bases of imputation for your own self, you can find the body and the bones and the skin and this and that. You can find the feelings, good and bad, the discriminative functions, compositional factors, and the stream of consciousness. All can be found to exist there, but there's no self. The self is just something that is imputed upon those bases of imputation, and it is then somehow becomes the main focus of your attention and your clinging and your worrying about it and your providing for it and all those things, even though that self doesn't actually exist.
Hola so. Takolo deja shagana. Ta Tawa le na chiruji lo ta shashagi. Tawa yuna Tawa le ta shashagi. Also to see.
We will stop right here in the teachings on the text, and instead we will ask for questions about any of this that we've gone over.
I'd like to ask.
Troy, you'll have to come up where Rob can hear you. Can you come a little closer?
Just a very quick question. Could you please tell us what the root text is that's the basis for what we're talking about?
This is all coming based on the Lamrim Tsongkhapa. And it's the part on the Prajnaparamita.
Thank you.
And so there are various like commentaries on that, teachings on that. And so Geshe was reading from some of those.
Someone has a question.
I have a question on the application of this to forms of meditation. If we are doing Buddha mantra, we are told, imagine that the Buddha is right there. If we are doing a Yidam meditation, imagine that the Yidam becomes you. It seems to me that these practices are strengthening the false imputation of self by looking on other objects as real. Can you discuss that?
By looking at other objects as real. And what are the other objects?
When we meditate on the Buddha, we're told, imagine he's sitting there, right there in front of you, and it's not a picture. It's not two-dimensional, it's real, it's breathing, it's living, and it has a relationship to you. The same thing is true in all of the Yidam practices I have been given, only that the Yidam dissolves into me. And all of those, it's me, 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 me. Is that just a flaw of my own, or is there a flaw in the process that we need to be aware of?
Okay, very good. Quran, Sangye Chomden Day, Mikne, and Job Sudrogire, Turba Sugire, Nunam Japtire, Jindayari. Young Yidam Giswa, the K-Rivity Kapsu, Yidam, Rangi Chiborla, Pebne, Dene, Rangla Tim Give. Then the Kurangi Dopa Dire, then Sangye Chomdende, so Rangi Dunna, the Sova depth na Shiva Bona the Tsundang Shugul Gi Mayimba the Sangi Chumden de Rang Yore Sam Gore. In a Quran Dopa did Sangi Chumden de Ngone Drangne Yore Rangi Dunla the nature of Fugi. Diyana dene Sangi Chumden de Gi Dak Zingi Yore. Yidam Hua Rangla Chimna Kirim Katsu dene Rang Gang Yidam Nisume Barjugire. Dene Diyang Sosarangi Daksin Sherutokire. Sherutokire. Gangan Senadas Yidam Gifla Rangla Chimne Nisume Barjugire Da Nga Yidam Yin Sam Gudu. Dene Daksin Sherutokire. Didn't they talk about your Quran?
Deba yabu reshata. Yabu resha nga sukanga deba tla yoro. Ta kono tesruchi. O sonji chandin di ngusu insani chupa pina re chachne le manato na re. Ngala sonji ngusu chupa pege phen yogi res lorochi. Ngusu yomaro yomartine ta tachin pede. Sonji chandin le ngusu chachia da ngusu chupa pege. No jaga de chelo yogi res. Sunat sagres. Ini dan la ching kosle rai dan hai ngul pa chiguro dan har gal me tin sia la rang dan hai ngul chigure de chid son lien samba sun se che ne ra tan se pa samba chi di kan ya ta jin da ma ne jin da ma kol chi de yang uma an ho ge ni yu ji tu chu on da de ba tu ho ge yu ji tu yi shi ba chen ta ya ni ba ma chen ta jin da ma ba ten wa che a de ni no on ha Tientang, onko jidoji, ni onko chili tangi kan, to ya choya lama ya chon ni ya, rangi rida karinda tina te ya, yopame ina re, tsapame ina re, kana chi yoyo, atla chi ya gung, tungula gung, atla chi ne, chi su yorta, judin diwa ina. Teri ma to da, la chi si ne, ra, linji karina, suan diwa karina, de, thagi pa. De, choba la karina, tumi nga chogiri ma to da, kansina, Raji Marubi Tumban to Josun, Tumbi Ngale, and the Sabian Karina, Davana is not Tari, December is no Hore, Ninga he a sayer, send the city. Sigmu, I shall sing who you patch your name, down Josun Sandwood, Raya down Hal Josun, some of the Trichero. That's in the matter, the injury. But the injury. It's in it, they're not how to do this time, this song had the Diarita. That's why the Chiva Pia the Moon is a Chiva Pina, Chiva Pia get yellow news here, that in Jiro. Now look, touch her now. ngaso mari bi ong la yo ma ro so so ning is ta pena dishi ku zu zing ti ba tu yang ba se je dai si se yo da shi bi ku zu zing ti ba le ku zu se de mi ta ne mi ta ba sha ge le ya ke ba tu sa sa bi ba se la ge ne su na ju ye su shan do a de den ji ta shi mu ji ro so ji le so ji ku zu zing ti ba le ji na ba sha ta ge yo re ne te ba ji ne 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 yi sa shi bi ta na ge da te cha ju ye ji de lo lo ji
So, okay, so yes, this is Geshe Lharam says this is a very good question, a very important question, because if we do not examine
oh
carefully,
mai chi ro ne ah this one
then, okay, if we do not look at these things very critically in the same way that we've been speaking of today in this lecture, we don't look at all the things that we engage in, such as visualizing that the image in front of us in the tanka or in the gilded bronze is actually the Buddha. If we don't subject that, as well as our own meditative processes, generating ourselves as the deity and so forth, or just whatever we're doing, whatever we see, whatever we think about, we don't apply the same critical examination to all of them, then we are not fully realizing, or we're not realizing at all the object to be refuted, that is the emptiness. We're not realizing emptiness, which is the emptiness of true existence. And so the true existence is the object to be refuted. But what does that mean? We have to understand what exactly is that object to be refuted. So in your example, you're talking about the image of the Buddha in front of you, that you are told that you must perceive it, think of it as the actual Buddha. And so this, of course, is not to strengthen your self-clinging or your view of objects, whether it be the Buddha or yourself or anything else, as being truly existent. Rather, we have to look at it critically and see that why are we focusing on the Buddha? It is because he is the teacher of the way to realize emptiness. And this is why we are devoted to him, because he breaks this iron chain of delusion that keeps us in the samsara, because we cling to the self and phenomena as truly existent. So when you see the image in front of you and you visualize that as being the actual Buddha, the purpose there is to get the blessings and the powers from the actual Buddha to yourself. So you make offerings, you bow down, you express the praises of the Enlightened One, and so forth, all with the thought that this is the actual Buddha that you are relating to, that you're connecting with, and not just a image made of paint and cloth. So that's very important, because if you just see it as something made of paint and cloth, then so you're getting the blessings of things that you could buy at the hardware store. It's not any special blessings. But when you realize that the Buddha, with his compassion, has come to that place, and you open yourself up to that connection, then you get the blessings and the powers of the Buddha. And that's the whole point of that. It's not to strengthen the sense of anything truly existing. Quite the contrary. When you get those blessings and those powers, that is what is going to enable you to realize emptiness. And so then your other example was of the yidam. When you're engaging in a generation stage practice of the tantra, then at one point, once you've done all the preparatory work, then you receive the yidam on the crown of your head, and the yidam then merges with you. It descends into your body, speech, mind, and so forth, and becomes one and undifferentiated from you. So you focus on that object fully, and not on some idea of, oh, I am becoming the yidam, or I am this, I am that. It's where what your focus is on. Just like when you're worshiping the Buddha, the image of the Buddha, you're focusing on that being the actual Buddha, not on I who am making the offering or something. So with the yidam, it's not I who am becoming the yidam. You're focusing on the yidam and the process of the merging into one, and subsequently the deities of empowerment coming and granting you the empowerment, and how that goes into you and empowers you, and then of course the wisdom beings, the actual deity coming into you, and that whole process. So if you really involve yourself in that, then there's no thought of self, or I am doing this, or I am becoming that, or but rather you are concentrating one-pointedly on a process which will indeed bring you the powers and the abilities and the blessings and the merit that you need in order to fully realize emptiness.
And this Roji, Krontin, Sangalia, Tampi Hashin, you wouldn't Gajaro. Tampi Han, Shambani Gajari, the Nebulalo, Sais not on Gaji Gunguru, this is the Mando. This is positive and Lagamaro. Tampi Hashin, even the Gajari, Sai Sewat, Sais not Nibudi, taking Nebun Lugurta. This one tell Nukunimando. Positive and Lagama test. Can't you imagine that Tumani Guru Tumani Miva Toyomata? No to a Shirogita, Hatungita, Joe Sugar Yomaro. Good talk, no, we hit on Tantamando. No, so.
Now, when it was mentioned that when you do the generation stage of the Tantra, which culminates in the yidam entering into you and becoming one and undifferentiated from you, that's done only in the context of the many steps that lead up to that moment of the merging with the yidam. And the actual generation stage begins with the realization, to whatever degree you can do it, of profound emptiness. And then out of that emptiness arises the seed syllable of the yidam, and the lotus, and so forth, and each thing transforming into something else, but it's all coming out of emptiness. So if emptiness is just a word to you and not any realization, then you're not effectively entering into this practice. So that's just to say that you have to do it step by step, and you have to have some degree of real appreciation of what arising out of emptiness means, and then you won't have the feeling that this is increasing your clinging to the self. And so remember that it was said today at the beginning of the lecture, and also in the last session at the end of it, that the most important thing for us to focus on when we are trying to realize emptiness here is the identification of the object of negation. Once we really understand what the object of negation is, then it sort of is going to vanish of its own accord. But that's the big task that we have to take on, is understanding what is being negated when we say that the self doesn't truly exist. What is that self that doesn't truly exist? What is being negated here? Is it our body or our mind or something like that? No, it's the self which is superimposed upon those aggregates, those bases of imputation. So that's the task we have to engage in, understanding what exactly is being refuted. And then from that, we can succeed at all of these practices, whether it's meditating on the Buddha, making offerings to him, or the generation stage of realizing yourself as the deity. Oh, yeah.
I have a question that is more of a checking in, perhaps, to make sure my understanding how to apply this teaching to my everyday life, how effective I might be. My understanding is that if you can erase that one sense of self comes from perhaps awareness of your body, perhaps from strong emotions, and seems to me you can, through various yogic practices, you can calm the body to the point of it not being aware of it so much at all, that you can calm your mind to the point where you can control your emotions. You can have a life, you can decide on a life where you don't have a lot of responsibilities, so you don't have to make decisions or feel frustrated by the behavior of other people. And you can kind of design this existence where you don't have to bump into the self very often. But I happen to have a life that's a boiler pot of bumping into the self continually as an employer and as an entrepreneur who is trying to make a living, and for a number of people, and so I try to have some awareness of when it's the self, the object of refutation that I'm experiencing when I'm trying to guide behavior towards proper ends. And there's a process, it seems to me, of habituation that guides one towards the end that we're trying to achieve. And if I, in the midst of my boiler pot life, recognize that I've just seen the object of refutation, will that guide me in the long run towards behaviors that don't depend on or reflect the self? Does that make any sense, Robert?
Yeah, you've said a lot of things there. So
I know.
I think I understand, and I'll ask it in brief, and so we can get a clear, maybe get to the main point of what you're asking.
Thank you.
Shila Quran, da Tomba Nila Gomyagi Dutso Shadra Yomai hearing song. Quran Sam Delo Mendu. Jane Lopchung Jelo Mendu. Quran Leka Mambo Yari. And Leka Mambo Chene Dutso Yomai. And then any tongue, Sapmo Tongue, La, Ron, Shine down flock from Dutso Shidrayo Mai. In Lake Mambo J. They Kapsu, Chena Gom to Pire. Gangan Sena, the Gang Saki Dag, Yume, Tukire, Gom Tukire, Sekidor. Gom Tukire Bay. Then they,
라
Dinde Yongi Duge, Yong Sigi Duge.
아니 나때 신내시아트들 리가지 힌드 가버려라 신내 도사수나고 가는 제주여로 와 신내데 신내 도사수나 가봤냐고 잘살했더만 또 신내 두비 꼴래야 리가지 히기니 신내 두야지 가부 인사했다 그래서 뭐지 눈에 생기네 눈이 가자라고 야부시네 코노 지 야부 고아차는 동반 소화도 그렇게 수수이나 산동이 지는 동주 야시 인사래 다이나 또 사수는 야도는 나바자니 야지 무궁하다 조사디 좀 지야 되는 거로 그래서 난도 당하면서 돈이 또 너무 많다 맞고
That's
그래서 돈이 군스티 해는 내 군아지 군아메나 거선 사시 가자 뜻은 가자 다 두바서 이거는 주고 때요 말 상로 그 수수도 요만 선물지 현재 자기 간이 제투기나 네 돈이 또 순나지 야부 인사선 되버리다 이내 신내셔야지 토마살 두발라 이지만 내 엠발라지 데니지 조지 마제나 리가지 히 두야지 인사말 사말이 두다 완전 대순부지다
okay, so Geshe says this is an important question because it applies to so many of us, and so we have to be realistic in our practice and what we can do and what we can't do. For example, if you have a busy life with a lot of responsibilities and duties and things, there's no way at all that you can aspire to attain shamatha, for example. The shamatha really does require, in order to achieve it, it requires many months, at the very least, many months of doing nothing but shamatha practice, nothing else. But when we are talking about coming to an understanding of the object of refutation and so forth, to really have a realistic chance to fully understand this, of course, you need to have the shamatha first. You need to have a very, very calm and clear mind, which has been sort of developed so that it can focus sort of laser-like, one-pointedly on its object without any distraction. And then with that power of concentration, you engage in the critical examination of the objects and look for the object of refutation without any distraction. And so to really succeed at it, then you have this path, this system, which is taught here by Tsongkhapa and so forth, how we do this. But that is not to say we cannot prepare ourselves for that, but we cannot study the text, listen to the lectures, do what we're doing, and put some real energy into understanding the teachings, understanding the process, understanding the methods of realizing emptiness, and understanding this dialectic of the Madhyamaka. We can do this. We can study and really approach that, and as we do that, become inspired to engage at some point in a sort of full practice that involves turning away from all those worldly duties and responsibilities and distractions.
老师，多谢。
Good, thank you.
Oh, no.
So should we say the dedication prayers now?
Okay.
Thank you so much. Robert, that was wonderful translation. Wonderful.